Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Scots and Socks. I'm Scott, and he's Scott, and I got it right. Hey, yeah, I know it troubles me every week. How you doing, Scotty Carson?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Scotty Mac. It's this extraordinary journey called life. I tell you what, it encompasses a lot of amazing things. And for me, one of the most amazing things that I have to give to others is a pair of socks, right?
Mhm.
But it's not about the socks, is it? Do you know what I mean? Like
No.
Scott's and Socks, the Empathy series, it's here for a reason. We're here to connect hearts. We're here to connect with others. We're here to have bigger conversations so that we can get down to the root. How's that? I love this. I don't know if people can say that or not, but I see us very much like trees. The stronger our foundations, the stronger our roots are embedded in the soil, the stronger we stand. And the Empathy series is for me about getting a better understanding, going deeper into the roots so that we can stand stronger. We can stand together stronger because we've taken the time to understand what's down in that darkness. So, yeah, fantastic.
I think,
Fantastic week I've had.
awesome. Well, we'll come back to that in a minute. I just want to say that, from my perspective, the curiosity elements always something at play with me in everything I do. However, the whole purpose of this is to bring as you say, greater understanding and greater empathy toward other humans, no matter what they're going through, no matter what their challenges, no matter what their opportunities. So I do think we are increasingly in a society of people that make their minds up snappily about who people are and why they're there and so on and so forth. And Scott and I do regularly talk about people who find themselves in vulnerable situations because we believe certainly that there's a great misunderstanding about those people, and there's a lot of attribution and blame for people who are struggling. And it's something that we want to shift the paradigm on. And certainly for me, in work with social services, it's a big deal and it presents itself regularly. And one of the joys of meeting Scott is that, he's at the ground, taking that understanding and turning it into an experience for somebody, and an opportunity for someone to be heard, seen, valued. And that's what drew me to the SOCS program. And so from my perspective, we have two very different lived experiences and two very different focuses, but or do we? Almost all of what I do is about trying to help people help other people. And, we're very much aligned in that regard. We just do it differently, it's fair to say. So Scotty's on the ground and I'm in my ivory tower, so to speak.
Well, it's interesting, Scotty. Like Mr. Wise about growth, you're running the growth series, and what is growth? Like growth, like I refer to the tree. Like it's a tree. It doesn't just grow a little bit and stop growing. A tree grows to its fullest potential before it dies, right? I wonder what the human race would be like if it could grow to its fullest potential. Empathetic leadership comes from when you're actually understanding somebody else. You're actually understanding their needs. You're understanding what it is they want to achieve and supporting them to do that. And I think one of the greatest things that you find in your work, I find in mine, is when somebody sees an opportunity to better themselves because of the actions you've created for them. You've been a part of their journey, and their intrinsic value grows, which is just extraordinary. We get to empower somebody else to be a better version of themselves.
Yeah, and I think that the interesting thing. Sorry, go for it.
The intrinsic value in that gift just makes you feel wonderful when you have that opportunity. So then you do better. So then that inner smile grows more, gives more to others. How you project is everything. It's one of the things when we walk the streets that constantly educate people on is how are you connecting with people? How are you presenting yourself with your physiology, with your tone of voice, with a pair of socks? Are you putting them out in front of you going, take it? Or are you taking the time to, this is what this means? How are you presenting it? How are you sharing that with others? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Certainly in my work and in the growth series. Look, it's so similar to the SOX program. It's not funny in the context that in order to be effective in a market, in order to be more effective than a competitor, in order to get the jump on competition, to be more relevant to consumers, we require this little thing called curiosity. And we've seen, you know, a
Mm,
bit of a pandemic of the depletion of curiosity over time, and understandably so. As life gets faster, as things become, a little more complicated, we do tend to, I guess we tend to make snappy decisions based on past experience. And, this is what is frightening and potentially relieving about the AI movement, if I can call it that, which is, you know, one of the good, someone said the other day, what do you think is going to happen with AI? Do you think it's going to create jobs, take jobs away? What do you think is going to happen? And one of the things I hope happens is it reminds us that if we continue to transact on each other and continue to treat each other like numbers, we will continue to be unfulfilled in our customer experiences and life experiences. So the curiosity in my work is a definite requirement to sort of think about deeply, not what your consumers doing or your customers doing or what your cohorts doing, but why. Why is it that they're doing that? And Scotty, that's really similar to your work. Why is this person homeless? Why are they? Um, is it their fault? Why can't they get a job? Why can't they get off the streets? Why? If we actually genuinely sit in curiosity and are prepared to hear the truth and process the truth, as as much as it might be completely distant from our own perspective, if we're able to hold that truth, we get to learn, and we make too many assumptions out there. How many times do we walk past a homeless person and go, "Oh, geez, what a waste"? Why don't you go and get a job, idiot? Or how many times do we make huge assumptions about consumers? Marketers are very, very good at this, rubber stamping customers and making enormous assumptions and generate generalities about people's behaviour and who they are. And misunderstanding leads to shitty relationships. That disconnect leads to shitty relationships. So I don't care if you're a brand, a charity, a cause, or an individual trying to address an individual. If you don't understand or you don't try to understand as a first step, there is no relationship.
oh, it's just there's so much coming up for me listening to you at the moment. Like it's interesting because some people think that I only work with those doing it tough. Some people think that I'm only working, with those on the streets. But the reality is, those CEOs that have got 1,000 plus employees that blow a couple of grand on coke, drink a bottle of scotch every night, right? They're more dangerous than the guy on the streets blowing himself apart with heroin because they've got all these people that they're actually reliant upon how successful they are. You know, we all have
Yeah,
dark days. We all have stuff going on. We all affect one another. Like Scotty, you've
mhm.
walked the streets with me. The amount
Yep,
of times you met a business owner that's dropped his keys, left the house, and never came back, right?
yeah,
Because the
that's right.
pressure of he didn't have answers to deal with those situations. Like
Yep,
it's the not until we get an understanding of why somebody is where they're at do we even get the opportunity to explore what growth can be had for all of us.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I think that's the one thing that empathy is in its truest form is that opportunity of better understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that by stopping and taking the time to better understand people, I've learned in the last couple of years so much about the lived experience of homeless people, thanks to you and thanks to the and that learning helps me bring empathy and understanding that I didn't have before because I made the time and space to understand. And like you rightly say, there's a lot of people out there struggling, a lot of people who look like they're killing it um, out in the world, and but on the inside they're kind of slowly dying. And I think that's it doesn't matter what walk of life. And Scott and I didn't do this because yeah, sure, there is definite gaps in terms of, you know, the generalities we make about cohorts of people or people that are vulnerable and all that sort of stuff. How we truly show up empathetically for others. I think many of us had, certainly I did. I had, you know, a great deal of hope about what the pandemic would do in terms of connecting us again, but I just didn't see it. Um, and the actions of people was thoroughly disappointing. You know, supermarket hoarding happened where people were affluent. So effectively, the great predictor of that is the degree of selfishness in a household was going to drive the hoarding of toilet paper. You know, it's it's it was disappointing to see it, but also it was a bit of a parade of where we're at. It was all on show. People's best and worst was all on show.
I agree. There's not until we get significant pain does change get made. Like I want to bring it back to human behaviour. You know, Scotty, I'm quite annoyed with the current narrative around men's health. I'm tired of women telling men how to do things better because you're not a man. So don't tell us. So I'm happy for you to listen to us, but stop talking at us. But when it comes to like COVID was one of the greatest opportunities I've ever seen. You know, what really matters, what is really important. Do you know what I mean? And it comes back to human behaviour, how we affect one another. On Thursday last week, I've got a guy that I'm supporting at the moment. And it's a tough time right now, right? Things are going a bit awkward with a certain job. And so I stepped in to assist him to get it through while he deals with a family issue. Now, the customer lawyered up straight away, and you know that's fine. You're allowed to protect yourself. But I spoke to this lawyer about where the situation's at, and that we're looking to support and create an outcome that is beneficial to everybody through support. Right now, it's a critical time that we don't need to add pressure to one another. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Then come at me with all this bits and pieces, and I'm like, so you want to go down this track? You really want to take this on right now and push that agenda when we're trying to find common ground to support each other to get completion of a project so that everybody wins? He goes, oh, mate, I'm just looking after my client. I said, no, you're a shit bloke. I said, because it's poor human behaviour. Next thing he did was send a letter outlining all of the problems when, in reality, his client is actually the problem. But because he's done absolutely no research and just taken the word of the client, he's then projected more pain into this person at the moment that needs just a little bit of space so that they can work through things so everybody's successful. But that was poor human behaviour. And I think that's something that we don't think enough about. We don't think about enough as human behaviour. We've currently got the gender agendas, and it's irrelevant. What we are is human. What's a human behaviour? How do we support one another? You know, and we all like. I love to think of us humans like red wine, right? Red wine. How many different types of red wine from different regions is there? There's heaps, right? But how do you know which red wine goes with which meal? We need to put labels on it, right? We need to put a label. This is a Cab Sav from South Australia, made with these fruits, so that will go better with this steak, right? But the reality is, it's a red wine, okay? If we go chunk it up, we like red wine. That's fine to have red wine, but we need to understand each other so we know where each other fits in. We don't need to demand from one each other to learn each other. We're just going to have experiences that teach us what go with what foods or what wines go with what places. And I you can see me starting to get worked up in here, Scotty.
Let's divert. Yeah, I was just going to say, like, you know, interestingly enough, guys, I want you to just set expectations here. There's little to no chance that Scott and I will be running a parallel wine tasting series because neither of us dudes drink. So, like, you know, hey, but I'll talk to you all day about drinking. So
it's been 7 years since I've had a drink. So
yeah, exactly. So I what I do want to say to that is I've got a really a really awesome lesson early in my career, and we talk about valuing the differences, and we very often don't. And one of the great things about, last year we started to walk the streets with leaders in business, to open their
Mm.
minds to, and it is, um, it is. Hang on, someone just asked who you are, Kenny. Kenny from Houston. How you doing? Who is Mr. Smiles? His name is Scott Carson from the Business of Smiles, sir. um, so yeah, I mean, one of the things I learned early is that I would get frustrated with others that were in our organization or whatever. And, I guess when we're walking the streets with leaders, we're bringing them into, and you're specifically more to the point, bringing them into environments that are so incredibly unfamiliar, sometimes a little daunting and confronting, um, that you're asking them to leave their comfort zone so much that, the big upside of that is that when we start to lead other people, we are better at adapting ourselves to the understanding of differences. And in very, very early in my career, I think it was my first national leadership role. I was getting frustrated and I was having a whinge to my boss about our sales team, nationally, and some execution issues or whatever. And he said to me, Scotty, how many sales reps are there in Australia? I said, I don't know, a few 100,000 or something. Yes, and how many of those guys, how many sales managers are there? And I said, you know, um, I don't know, maybe 10,000. And he goes, and how many of this, and how many regional managers? And he kept going and going and going. He goes, now you're a national, whatever it was, business manager or whatever. He goes, how many of you are there? I said, a few hundred. And he goes, do you know what? There's a reason for that. I went, right. He goes, and you few hundred speak differently, think differently, and act differently than the couple 100,000 we started with. And yet you're expecting them to think like you. If that was true, wouldn't they all be doing your job? And I know it sounds really basic and fundamental, but I was, I think I was 26 and I was like, which isn't to say that you look at other people and go, they don't just get the world the way I get it. Um, there's many choices and things that we make in life around our work and the kinds of work we're drawn to, the things that we're good at that put us in different situations that are different than others. For me personally, um, I know that I'm prepared to work harder and study harder and focus more on work than most people would consider healthy. Um, and that's my choice. So I like it. I get a great deal of energy from it. I get a great deal of joy from it. Even Scott said to me the other day, geez, you're working too hard. I went, yeah, but dude, I love it. So it's kind of a good use of my time, right? Not a lot of people think that way. In fact, I'm really envious of people who go, you know what, I've been working for the same guy for 15 years. It's really cool. The kids are great. I go to all their sport. I do all this stuff and, spend all this time with the family. And I'm like, yeah, but you've worked the same place for 15 years. Doesn't it bore the living shit out of you? Um, and they're like, no, no, well, I make a stable income. I get to do the things that are important to me. And it's not to say that my family's not important to me. It's just to say I get a very different degree of energy from the work I do than maybe they do. Um, and that's just different sources of energy that people get in their lives, draws their focus. So, I think what's great about the empathetic leadership stuff is that people talk about it. You can sit in a bloody room and have someone talk about the theory of empathetic leadership, or you can walk the streets with Mr. Carson here and start talking to people who you would never in a month of Sundays engage with and start to challenge yourself about being truly empathetic with situations and circumstances and lifestyles that are so far removed from anything and I'd like to see a lot of this happen in charities, for no fault of their own. Charities are full of incredibly intelligent people who are incredibly well intended, um, who want to do good in their career, but many of them have had university education. They haven't lived on the streets. They haven't got a lived experience. So the vast majority of them, that's true. That's not a problem in terms of that's not their fault. That doesn't make them lesser at their job or anything like that. But experiences like this that challenge you to go into a different domain start opening up the options that you have to engage with the market. Start opening up your ideas that come from hearing those experiences, understanding them more deeply. Once we do that, we can start to solve problems in a more creative way. So that sounded like a bit of a rant from me, by the way. But I
No,
was
no,
also
no,
trying,
no. no. So I
trying to
got something
diffuse
to
a Carson explosion over there. So
we got KDJ on YouTube. Who is Mr. Smiles?
yes. Oh, let
Who
me
is,
show that.
who is Mr. Smiles, right? Who am I? I'm a guy that's learned that life is better with a smile. This smile's not an accident. It's actually a smile emerging from my darkness. Yeah. I've had an extraordinary life. I was on the streets at 14. I've lost businesses. So I held my wife in my arms when I thought she was dead, blood pouring out of her head and her mouth, while I had my 2-year-old son on my left arm, and no one stopped to help us. I'm a man that's learned that life gives you opportunities to grow if you're prepared to embrace them. And I think the most important thing in life is having safe places to actually explore these emotional situations so we don't project them onto others. You heard me before talking about we're on the streets, we project our stories. Now, the reality was when I was 13, my stepfather wanted to take my life, which led me down a serious rabbit warren of just anger and hate for many, many, many years. And I projected that upon everybody I came through until such point as I had the opportunity where I was emotionally safe to have conversations which allowed me to be a better man, which allowed me to be able to be who I am today, to have more empathetic opportunities for other people, because a smile really does make the difference, especially when you're wearing it and it's authentic. And so,
Yeah.
and that's. I'm gonna share this.
That's great. You answered that question. And by the way, I want to say hello to Martha, who's joined us. We were on Martha's program. Yeah, we were on her. Was it last week? Something like that. And we were just having a bit of a chat on LinkedIn on the weekend. So thanks, Martha. And it is Memorial Day over there almost. So in the US of A. So enjoy that. But you too, Kenny. Kenny and Martha do come to my audio shows, the Let's Grow series, and I can't come up with a more original joke, but I have to keep saying who killed Kenny. I just have to keep doing it. I don't know why. I'm just immature. But hey, Martha, how you doing? Martha's doing some amazing work in the US in illuminating awareness, which is what we're really big on. So big fans of what you're trying to do over there, and we'll support you in any way we can with the tools that we have. So thanks for joining us. And I think I do want to labor this point about leadership and understanding, because it's so very important. And any of us that are in a fortunate position where we can create experiences for people or environments for people to live a better life. Now, that might mean in a business context that you're creating an environment for someone to flourish, to perform, to be happy in their work. Or it might mean in your community that you put a smile on someone's face, or you helped an elderly lady with some groceries or whatever because you could see she was physically struggling. Whatever you're doing to positively impact another person's life requires you to stop and take in the experience from their perspective. Take it in. Do I know what it's like to be homeless like Scott? No. Does Scott know what it's like to battle through corporate and all of its politics and bullshit? No, but I do. And we have a lot of fun conversations about that where he's like, really? Is that? And I'm like, yeah. We all have our own experiences.
You see me, Scotty, where I stumble is inside the corporate environment because I don't know it, right? I'm not familiar with it.
Sure,
but I'm prepared.
And you can tell everyone. You can tell everyone how good I was at rocking up with a pair of socks. Hi, do you want some of these? Because I'm really awkward right now, and I can see you haven't had a shower for 3 days, and I don't know how to deal with it.
This is the thing, Scotty, right? I was never forget the day that I was speaking to a group of men and they're complaining about the wealthy that they need to do more for people, and I'm like, I want to grab that for a second. Where focus goes, energy follows. So just out of curiosity, of all you guys on screen right now, how many of you focus on wealth creation? None. Okay, so why are we criticizing somebody for what they have focused on? Why don't we take the opportunity to ask questions and learn? Become empathetic and go, listen, I really like what you've done. Could you teach me how to do a little bit? So I'm just conscious of time. I have to be on point.
Yes, so do I, and we need to do it. But it happens. I want to just point out that misconceptions and misplaced judgments occur at all ends of the socioeconomic spectrum in all manner of society. Whether you're someone who's achieved well and has a lot of assets in the world, or is relatively wealthy and can't understand these people on the street because they must be lazy, they must be this, they must be that, or you're someone who has immigrated to the country, has had to choose a vocation like cleaning, and assumes that it's okay to overcharge somebody who is wealthy. So it happens at both ends of the spectrum, where people, a lack of understanding and a lack, moreover, of trying to create empathetic and valuable relationships, creates distance and creates a division in our society, which is one of the things that Scott and I are big on. Now, Scott's had a pretty big week, as have I, but I'll talk about that somewhat tomorrow on the Let's Grow show. Tune in, 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Scotty, talk to us.
Right. I've got just under 3 minutes. Yesterday, I had an amazing opportunity to actually go to a golf day where I got there. There's 30 odd blokes that have been doing this once a month for 18 years. And I rocked up not knowing anybody, invited by a guy I go camping with every year. And I get there and I sat back and I watched. And I watched all these men walk up and hug each other and say g'day and bond. And it was just beautiful. I was warm in my heart for what they were. Now, Luke had brought me there to have a conversation because he's known these guys for a long time. They've been together, but they've never actually talked about their own mental health. They've never talked about how things really are the big stuff. So much was evident when in my presentations, presence is the one thing that I really focus on. How do you present? What are you presenting? How are you turning up in the world? Number one gift that we all have is our presence. And these come in a very special opportunity. So I gifted everybody a present and we're having a conversation. I said, just out of curiosity, how many blokes here have been affected by suicide? Every hand went up. I said, how many guys have had suicidal thoughts? Majority of the hands went up. Next thing you know, we have a conversation where a guy shares the fact that he attempted suicide a few years ago. We talked about it and we had the conversation, and one of the things that I'm massive on is we don't just leave it at that. We ask questions. We get involved in the conversation. We actually get empathetic and get a deeper understanding of what happened. Crazy thing was these guys have been together for 20 years. Not one person knew. It needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And
when we talk, Scotty, when we talk about suicide, it's an individual problem that we've been dealing with it on individual cases. It's a human problem, right? So we need to deal with it as humans. We need to deal with it in the open dialogue that we need to have. We need to not be shut down by media. We need to have open forums where it's okay. It's a part of our life. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be in our life. So we need to. I
want to close this out with one key insight from that, and that is that level of isolation occurs from a lack of confidence in sharing our stories, which occurs because of a precursor of a lack of empathy. What Scott and I are all about is that empathy is the key ingredient to connection, and God damn it, we need a lot more of it. So We're going to come with some pretty pointed issues in the coming weeks, I reckon. But we'll probably soften the landing a little bit and give you some material on that before we start talking about those issues, so you can prepare
You
fire
might.
questions for us.
You might.
Yeah, Scott will just rock up and talk.
I'll let you out, but I'll soften.
Yeah, I'm actually wearing a brace because I don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. So anyway, thanks for tuning in to Scots and Socks. One more time, we'll be back here, same time, same bat channel, next Monday, Aussie time. Yeah, thanks for coming along and listening. And those of you who are listening post the thing, hey, sorry you missed it, but good to watch the recording, so appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.